Jacob. Thank you very much, Roy. Good afternoon, everybody. And for those of you who I might not have met, my name is Jacob Hicks. I'm one of the account directors here at Service Modules. And today I'm going to just quickly take you over intelligent interactions and the Touchstone application itself. This will be very top line and quite quick because I think the time is going to be better spent talking to Aaron and Richard. But by all means, please feel free to look back to me after today's session if you wanted to talk anything in more detail or get into the weeds a little bit more. But essentially, intelligent interactions is when we think about our expectations of how we interact with technology. It's becoming increasingly demanding, and realistically, new technology needs to be presented as intelligent. An intelligent interaction focuses the user experience and the software for a sophisticated interaction. We are using intelligent interactions every day. I think everybody on this call would have either booked an Uber or Uber Eats delivery, and that is an intelligent interaction where Uber has combined the booking system with the GPS, so we can keep track of where either our driver or our food is. Alexia or Google Home, another example, turning smart light systems on and off via a voice command. So we've essentially used this technology within Touchstone to connect GIS mapping to provide a map view of work orders. When we think about Touchstone itself, the best way to sort of describe it is Touchstone is a fully configurable field service mobile management solution, a bit of a mouthful, but essentially a mobile application that seamlessly integrates with your existing technology and delivers the users the right tasks and information at the time when they need it. As we know, with assets in various locations, efficient management relies on access to the right information. And often data can be stored in a magnitude of different systems and places, and often these systems are not going to talk to each other or allow you to access this stuff offline. So Touchstone really solves that problem and seamlessly integrates with your existing technology. And as I said, reiterate that we can give you the right information at the right time, whether we're online or off. Touchstone itself is more than just an application, and where there's other solutions that do mobilise your entire EAM system, Touchstone mobilises your entire business process, and it provides you a single source of truth for field connectivity within the field, So essentially, as I said, it's a really quick flying overview of Touchstone and intelligent interactions. We're very excited to hear from Arpit shortly, who's going to take us into what the future roadmap looks like for Touchstone. But before we sort of jump into that, I guess we'll open up to any questions around either intelligent interactions or Touchstone. Is there anything that's come in the chat there at all?
No, at the moment it is perfectly clear. I think everybody is relatively happy with everything.
Fantastic. As I said, please feel free to look back to me after today's session should you want to talk in any more detail around this. As I said, I'll pass over to Arpit now, who's going to take us into the roadmap. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks, Jacob, for introduction and summarizing what Touchstone is. So hello, everyone. My name is Arpit, and I'm the product owner and the development lead for Touchstone. I've been with Certus for past 6 months. Main goal is around deploying the mature Touchstone product into 3 different platforms, iOS, Windows, and Android. We are currently live with 3 customers, and we are in UAT with 1. So you can see that we are pretty going in the right direction with Touchstone and making it a successful product. I would like to take an opportunity today to take you through what we are thinking in terms of a roadmap and strategy for Touchstone. So if we can go to the next slide. Okay, thanks, Roy. So I think before we get into details of Touchstone and roadmap, I think I would like to just highlight some of the bullet points which is in our manifesto to make sure we are all on the same page. So I think all the details that I'm going to share with you today, just important to note that it's a roadmap which is basically depicting the strategy and direction where we want to take Touchstone to, and it's not a promise or commitment like any other roadmap. We just want to show you where we are going for next year or so. But if other priority comes in or some other information comes up, then priority may change and we might push some of the features outside. So just be aware of that. Touchstone product team will always prioritize features where we can collaborate and actively partner with customer. And so just to ensure that we focus on real life use cases and not implement features which no one's going to use. So I think that's a very important point as well. And the third point, which is sort of complementing the second point, which is we will only enable and include features that are adding value and that are immediate takers for that releases, right? So that will help us unnecessarily adding risk to our existing customer, right? Because we are going to iterative delivery and we don't want to add features that no one's going to use. So I think it's sort of saying the same thing. And I will talk about that in a later slide anyways. So if we can now move into the next slide, please. So like any other product, we obviously start with vision and mission. So the Touchstone vision is that we want to be the single pane of glass for any of our customer need where customer can look through and access their process and data from multiple sources. And to complement that vision, the mission we have come up with is we want to be the platform framework or the capability that provide the intelligent interaction for any platform and provide anytime, anywhere access to business process, system, and information. I know it's a lot of words there, but it sort of perfectly sums up where we want to be as a product going forward, and it also complements the vision. So I think with that in mind, obviously we want to back it up with the research data. If we can move on to next slide, please. So what we have done before we come up with what we want to do for over the period of 1 year or so, we did a 2-phase of research. So we looked at about 115 organizations who are currently in EAM solution globally. We looked through around 50 relevant papers which published by the Gartner, and we looked at the 15 competitive products which are similar to Touchstone and just make sure that we are in par with them. And the results have been quite positive and good and given us quite a lot of strategic insight, eye-opening information, which sort of we incorporated or try to incorporate in our roadmap, so which you will see in the coming slide. So if we can move on to the next slide. Because we have organized ourselves as a proper product team and we are following Agile, we want to make sure that we are always iteratively delivering, adding value to the product. CI/CD is sort of the way we are trying to go towards. Obviously, we are the enterprise product, so we can't on live deliver products. So what we have tried to do is we have sort of established the quality gate every 3 months. So we thought about having it too quickly, like monthly, but that's going to be just too fast and we can't add enough value in 1 month. 6 monthly might be too slow because our customer obviously want to see the new feature coming in, any enhancement that they would like to have. So I think we have settled with 3-month cycle where we're going to iteratively deliver new feature and products, and customer will be given UAT bill where they can taste and provide a feedback. And based on the feedback we receive, we may choose to either delay. If some critical item is found, we can delay or cancel the release altogether. But otherwise, it will go ahead as planned. And I think that's the sort of message I'm trying to outline here, is that every 3 months you will see some value-added features going into the delivery. If you can please go to new slide. So this is the high-level roadmap. I understand that the text is very small and you can't see, but I think what I'm trying to show here is if you look at the 2 blocks on the top, which is in the green color, that's sort of our core roadmap. So we want to focus on feature which are existing feature that we want to enhance and make it even better. We are also incorporating customers' feedback. So existing customer has given us feedback and some of the features they desperately want. So we want to try and incorporate that. We want to also work on enhancing our core features so it's more supportable and sort of takes us toward becoming more and more mature products. So I think if you look at the first sort of 6-month period, we are not trying to bring in a groundbreaking feature because that's not the goal. We have established ourselves with 3 customers. We are going forward with more customers. We just want to make sure that our product is stable and capable and supportable, right? So I think the goal for the first 6 months is just around that. And then once we sort of pass that phase, then we want to look into what we have learned from our research. So if you see the bottom 3 epics, so we have sort of learned the my asset, so asset area, that could be the asset performance, enterprise asset management sort of area, location-based services, and the my team. So these are the sort of upcoming areas where people are going to demand more and more feature. Now, I'll take you through all these features in the next slide in more detail, but this is just to highlight how things going to progress. You will also see some of the operational items. So, like Android and iOS going to release every August new releases. So we want to also make sure that our platform keeps up with that and we are doing regular library upgrade, regular testing to make sure that we are always up to date with our product. If we can go to the next slide. So these slides are of the same information in a more contextual format, so you can kind of see where we are adding value in which areas. So I think the main area we were going to work on for the next 6 months is mainly supportability. So we now have a product out there, customers are using it. So we want to make it easy for them to use, report issues, or provide feedback, or even enable themselves to be able to resolve some of the problems. So they want to see the sync information. They may want to send some of the log, copy, and email to us. They want to see some of the transaction details so they can see what's happening in the background. So all of these stuff will help enable them and us to be proactively supporting product which is live in the production. The next segment is attachment area. So we already support attachment and stuff, but obviously the received feedback is they want to see more around that area. So they want to be able to upload different file formats. They want to be able to preview, domain, all that good functionality. So we want to focus on bringing that in because that straight away adds quite a lot of value to our existing customer, and I'm sure going forward other customer will benefit from that as well. The third one is a map. So we are trying to be mature in all three platforms, and we are delivering on all three platforms. So we also want to be making sure that the consistency across three platforms is the same. So we currently already support Google Map and GIS Map in iOS. We are already supporting maps in Android. But currently we haven't enabled map in Windows. So I think our next 6-month target would be to bring in the map feature in Windows so we can say all our three platforms supports the same capability. User friendliness, user experience, that's going to be ongoing thing, right? So every time we receive feedback or even we find anything that where we can make life easy for customer or make things efficient, we will be just continuously working towards it. So I'm not going to go into the details of it, but that's just going to be ongoing improvement. The most important thing here is we want to be future ready. So while we are developing our core product, we know that the current Maximo backend version that we support, that is going out of support in 2025. So next future state for our all customer would be most likely the Mars, which is Maximo 8, which is going to bring in a lot of AI and all future ready features. So we want to make sure that we are ready for that. So what we're going to do, we invest time making sure that we integrate with it, ready for it. So if any customer wants to enable any smart features going forward, at least we are ready with that. Now, I would like to just emphasize on the last 3 epic, which I haven't covered yet. So these are more sort of things that we learned from our research, and these are the areas where we want to invest in. The important thing to note is we are, as a product team, we work on enabler and accelerators, right? So we want to create the base where our customer can put features on that works for them. So we are not going to create features and just force feed to our customers. Basically, we are looking for partners and customer who understand the real life use case. They are out there using the products. They know how they want to use it. So if I talk about my asset, so we want to add more features on advanced filtering and search. We want to have a further data integration to see if we can add further value using the Touchstone, because Touchstone is a flexible platform, right? It doesn't only integrate with Maximo, but if you have other data source, we can enable it to sort of bring that data together and make magical things happen. So, but we don't want to develop features in our corner and then create a feature that no one will use. So if you as a customer can think of a real life use case, we want you to talk to us, partner with us, so then we can, using that base platform that we will develop, we can bring that roadmap alive for you. So I think that's the main point. Same with the location-based services. We will implement Google direction. We will implement, how to find asset and location and modify the attribution stuff. But it will not be visible feature until you tell us what use case you want to implement that you can use immediately. Same happens in a My Teams area. We know we can do further enhancement on how supervisor assigns the work or can see what other works assigned. So there's a lot of workforce management sort of ability we can bring, and we would like to hear from you. So I think with that information, if we can move to the next slide. So this is sort of the process diagram. I'm just sort of highlighting that we would, as a product team, we would like to work collaboratively, right? So we follow agile model, we creatively deliver value. We want to partner and do project with customers. So our engagement model is that you talk to us. If we have the feature already, or if we have done already the groundwork, then you tell us the use case that you want to establish. We will work together, collaborate, figure out the requirement, agree on that, and then we will prioritize and iteratively deliver to you. So throughout the process, we want to make sure that we are listening to you, incorporating your feedback, and delivering product that actually adds value to you, and not like, the new feature just because it makes sense hypothetically. So then you will see the outcome would be the good product that everyone like to use. So at this point, I think if you have any question, I'm happy to answer, but this is sort of the summary of where Touchstone is going forward. I will hand it back to Jacob and Roy.
Haven't had any questions come through yet, but if anybody would like to, they're more than welcome to drop them into that YouTube chat or onto the Intelligent Interactions chat room that we've got going as well. Perhaps you're just giving everybody all the information they need. They don't need anything answered.
Yeah, but even after some time you think of any question, please feel free to contact us. Yeah.
Absolutely, and people can comment anytime they want. We'll make sure that they get asked to you guys as soon as we get a bit of a break within the presentation for it as well. But looks fairly quiet at the moment, so who wants to go next?
Awesome, great. Thanks, Arpit. Really good summary, I think, and it's great to see that we've got that commitment around developing the base, the framework, making sure that we've got that supportability for things. But yeah, I'll reiterate what Arpit was saying. We need some feedback from our customer base just to help make sure that we really get to drive the roadmap forward in terms of the outcomes that you want to be able to achieve. So thank you for that, Arpit. Right, now for probably the most exciting part of the presentation, where we get to listen to some people who are actually using the product out there in the field. So this isn't in any sort of priority order around rankings of universities, but more that Richard volunteered first. So we'll go with Richard. Over to you. Thanks.
Did I volunteer, Roy?
You did, yes. Thank you.
Look, hey, it's good to be here today, and that was quite good to see. Quite exciting for me, actually. Some of our thoughts and feelings are on those roadmaps there, so that's really good. Our journey, let's talk about that. Basically, Massey's obviously based here in. Basically, we've got 3 campuses. We've got one in Auckland and one in Wellington, and the main one based in Palmerston North. We have been using Maximo for a very long time, but not in a particularly smart, mature way, if I'm honest, around the asset management piece, mostly work management, space, location management. So our journey along this path started, to be fair, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago when we started talking about this, but it really kicked off around that 2019 mark, where we said we do need to find our assets, we need to know more about them, and we need to know what type of state they're in, to be honest. So when you know you've got a lot of stuff, but you don't necessarily know where it is, or you know where it is, but you haven't got a record of it, this is actually quite a daunting task. We've got something like 18,000 locations here, and we know most of those locations have got carpet and that type of thing in them. I'm talking quite base level stuff, but when you add it all up, it's a huge investment to keep that going. So we had a conversation with Certus around, do you have any ideas on how we could do this? We knew mobile would form part of it, but to be fair, we weren't sure what that was going to look like. We weren't sure what was available at the time, for example, as well. So we've kicked off. In fact, we've got a slide for this, haven't we, Roy?
Yeah, sorry.
There we go. So we kicked off, what's that, 2018, 2019, in that period there. There's a lot of information on this slide, but we'll just step our way through it. Basically, we needed a way to capture this relatively cheaply. It didn't have to be super important in the first instance. It was just about finding what we've got and making sure that we've got a note of it. So creating assets, really. We captured some key information about them, but the intention was obviously to go back for the much more detailed ones and then move into the likes of preventative maintenance, that type of thing. So, 2018, we kicked off this asset data collection process. We managed it out of Maximo, which was a bit of a different way of doing things. So instead of going to an outside consultant, we used our own staff, pulled them in where we could, raised a lot of work orders for different asset classes and issued them out to people. Obviously, the specialist people got the specialist assets, but the generic stuff around paint and the sort of door condition, the carpet condition, went to pretty much whoever we could rope in. So that was a crazy period. Out of that, we created the likes of new work types. and we issue those out to people. And yeah, we managed to find something like 55,000 assets. We bulk created some of these. We assumed that most spaces would have some flooring and some wall coverings and that type of stuff. But through the app, we were able to delete them. So if you happen to get a cupboard that didn't have a window, for example, then we had tools inside the mobile app to take that out. I think some of the key points around this is this had to be semi-custom for what we were doing. Most of what was available at the time was around how do I work with my assets, and we were a step before that. We didn't have a record. So the ability to walk into a space, see pre-existing assets or add new ones, capture the detail, make it all work inside the maximum security framework and things like that. It was a big task. So after that, we moved into a separate app. This is back on the V2 days, and we started the work management piece as well. And a big driver for that was to try and keep that asset data up to date, try and pull it into business as usual activities. And that worked for a while, but then obviously in recent years, we've started the migration across to Touchstone, and that's where it's really just taken off. It's got a life of its own, and it's kicked into I was going to say like a higher gear, that type of thing. We've got 30 users at the moment. It's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but we've started with our internal trades stuff, and they are using it at the moment. In fact, we went live with the production version of Touchstone about 2 weeks ago. That's running on iPads and Android tablets, and so far the feedback has been excellent, really good. Dare I say, it's been much better than last time. So moving to the Touchstone platform has been just a very nice, put it that way, piece of work. So that's really good. We are getting some feedback through. I mean, this is the very first production piece that's gone out, but no majors at all. So all our testing and that process has worked well. The moment we started work management, like almost overnight, a bunch of paper processes just disappeared. Hadn't really thought my way right through that, but just it was quite incredible how quickly that just accelerated things along. So the concept of work logs, someone having to open the work order in Maximo on the front end web, find the job and put some notes in it, may or may not have been occurring anyway, but suddenly we got really good feedback on that. Timesheets was a thing. We were still doing timesheets. We were printing off bits of paper and people were writing what they worked on. And then that had to go to some admin staff to find those work orders and add the labor on. The issuing of materials, the guys would go and find the parts just like they do now, but they would write it on a bit of paper. And once again, someone would pick that bit of paper up. So it was just incredible how quickly that changed. It was, pretty incredible actually. And we started pushing out some really useful data to people straight away. So we put floor plans, for example, which normally sat on a shared drive. We were able to push it out to their tablet. So they got the work order, and if it was in a particular location, suddenly the floor plan was there to help them find it. It doesn't sort of sound like much, but some of our buildings are quite large. So it's just all these little things that we can actually get out there. We have hazards on locations, we have hazards on assets, and the ability to put that up right in front of a work order, it just delivers it straight to them. It was excellent. So swinging back to this list here, process improvement kicked off. It's dragging our maturity along, whether we like it or not. We have to improve in order to make use of some of these features that are there. So some of them are some conversations around, like there's a priority in there. Can you tell me where that comes from? We hadn't been using that. We had a service request priority, but we didn't have a work order one. So the front list screen allows you to sort on priority, but I didn't know what that figure was. So those types of things have been really, really good. That was a really quick fix and a small bit of training, and away we went. So it's interesting how that sort of mobilization piece dragged the organization forward. What else have we got in here? Yeah, the start and completion dates on work orders, for example, it's the same sort of thing as well. Because our guys toggle that status change, we instantly get a date and a timestamp on that. We didn't have that before. We had when the job was issued and then when it was closed. We didn't really know when the worker got there, all those types of things. We're moving on to using the health and safety aspects much more, the ability to put those into tasks. We've now got a platform to deliver those pre-start tasks to the end user and have it tied back to the work order and maximum. So we're at a point where we're either not purchasing other apps to do that now because that functionality can be easily recreated inside Maximum. And I guess I'd swing on top of that. If you want to jump in, Roy, you can. I'm here, but the ability to configure our tasks to do things has actually meant we're starting to look at our fleet of apps that do certain roles and think really long and hard about, do we need to pay for that anymore? Can we sync this in? the Touchstone for us is fundamentally based on core Maximo behaviors and concepts. So that type of stuff is not a customization. It's just making use of what was there, and we've paid for it already. We just weren't using it. So that side of things was good. We're going through some organizational change here. The whole restructure piece is going on, but we're quite comfortable that no matter how the pieces fall after this, because we're using the standard Maximo approach, the mobile piece is going to follow suit. So that's quite a relief, actually, knowing that we haven't got things hard baked in. We're not fixed into very formal role-based type products where you have to really hope that you can make it work with your own business process. So what else have we got on here? Yeah, we're moving into PM work orders and inspections. We haven't had that previously. It's all been paper-based. But once again, it's making use of the task and the route concept. So looking forward to that. We couldn't do that in the previous version, but that's now actually super easy. So overnight, that's put the pressure back on me actually to get that going, because that roadblock is now gone. With the modern Touchstone product, we're away. That functionality is there. We just need to start using it. It's looking pretty good. Looking towards the future, we are doing some BIM work, pulling in buildings and locations from there. We've got some hopes and dreams, really. Some of those are web-based products, so having a conversation, is there that option to use Touchstone as like an integration type platform? If we know the asset number, for example, can we go and grab some data from our SCADA systems or something like that and display that as well? It's the whole flexibility piece is still there. I think it's a pretty good summary. If there's any questions, I'll take those. If there's anything you want to add, Roy, or point out that I've missed, but certainly it's been a really good deployment this time around.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Richard. I just wanted a couple of things just want to touch on, particularly around kind of the process improvement stuff. So, I really like your comment there where you said, the mobile was kind of like the catalyst of you having to get better. It was like, if it was possible, if the old device grabbed your arm, put it up your back and said, no, I need this now, right? So I'm actually going to force you to follow the rules, essentially, that you're dictating. So I think that's great. And, I had a slide for ages, probably 8 years, where, it was basically saying that mobility is the catalyst for change within organizations. So it's great to kind of hear that is the case for Massey. So I think it's really good as well, in terms of that you're working through your operating procedures. And, we were having a conversation about a month or so ago around how you get some of your certification stuff in there. So where electrical work's done, I now need to collect this information so the electrical certificate and stuff can be issued. So brilliant.
We certainly do have I was just going to say, we certainly do have quite a range of either external products or internal processes that are paper-based that have never been in Maximo before. We may not have even considered Maximo the place for it because it didn't make a lot of sense. You couldn't get access to it. Through the Touchstone product, we're in a position where we can actually sort of bring that to life. We can put it in the hands of the field worker. So the likes of hazards was that first classic one. But as you say, we get to those sort of certifications, the ability to sign off, take some photos, it all starts making a lot of sense. Whereas previously that would probably be written down in some diary book around those types of things, And so, it certainly has driven it from a force at hand perspective. There's a couple of fields that we weren't using previously, which were smart and we should have been, but that's really forced that along. But we're also expanding into there's quite a few areas that we didn't really have a home for before, and now suddenly this could be a possibility. So, and obviously we come back and badger you if it's anything tricky and say, is this a sensible idea or not? But that ability to get more out of what we've already paid for and already got is quite good, especially as we start to try and save a bit of money at the moment. So definitely.
Great. Thanks, Richard. Has any questions come through, Paul, for Richard?
No, but I have two questions. First of all, are you guys okay there in Australia? We're seeing a little bit of glitching happening with your camera come through at the bottom half. If it's flashing, it's not earthquake or anything like that we need to worry about?
No, we're all still here, I think. I know we've lost somebody. I think Rowan leaving the room disturbed the force. So
That would be exactly what it is. I'm sure of it. I do have a question for you, Richard. More about the personal side of how you roll something like this out. We're obviously a change of systems. You're going to have people who are really entrenched into the older way that they were doing things and the previous systems that you had in place. How easy have they found that transition to using the new systems?
That is a really good. I'm going to move this camera over so I can look at you, Paul.
See, I'm not just a pretty face. I do pay attention.
If we'd had this conversation, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, I think it would be a very different one. Today, though, everybody is familiar with mobile devices. Touchstone, and correct me if I'm wrong, Roy, pretty sure is a relatively standard base platform, the same sort of platform you'd build, like the sort of Facebook apps, that type of thing. You know, I'm sort of thinking the banking side of stuff. So we pushed it out and have actually found, Paul, like no real issues and obstructions towards it. People have absorbed it. I've always thought that was a bit tricky, and I've tried to advocate for the end user, of course, that the process needs to be clear. We've had the conversations around the design and the flow and all that sort of things, but these are really smart people. They've got pretty incredible qualifications. They need to keep it up to date every year and that type of thing. So if we're not delivering something that they find intuitive, then we're not really doing our role properly as well. But to be fair, we've had none of those concerns. They just weren't there in practice. It was a real surprise. People adopted to this. They were excited that they could write a comment about what they did. You know, they didn't have to hand it over to someone else who maybe Chinese whispers it or something like that. You know, you show them things like the voice typing, and it just blows their mind. That type of thing. That's standard. That sort of base functionality on those devices. But no, to answer your question,
it does. Thank you very much.
It's been a walk in the park. It's been really, really good on that side. We need to bring in people from outside the organization. They maybe don't have the buy-in along that. They've come from other companies. But for our guys, that's worked really, really well. And even for people I thought may have had some issues, it does take a personal touch. I'm not going to say this just happens, but the concept has worked really well for us.
Cool. Glad to hear it. Roy, I'll give it back to you now.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. I want to just make sure that we get that little sound snippet from Richard where he just said it's been a walk in the park. So if we could just sound like that, that would be great.
A whole advertising campaign around it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
I need to say the likes of conditions implied may contain traces of nuts and stuff.
Sorry, you got to put your disclaimer first. Sorry, Richard. Awesome, great. Thank you very much for that. That's been brilliant. So with that, we will now hand over to Aaron at the University of Auckland.
Lovely. Hello, everybody. Glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity today. Welcome to my lounge. It's quiet. I've banished everybody from the room, so we should be in peace and quiet. I'm going to try and curb my enthusiasm. It's seldom I get a group of people who might be interested in mobility. My wife certainly is interested in it, nor my colleagues. So, but I will try and curb it. I am excited for many reasons, but we'll kick off with a slide if we could. But I'll start off with saying, a specialist, an application specialist, started in 2019 on a contract here as a generalist to maintain. So we are assigned from our IT, our Connect department, to the property division. So each division within Auckland University is granted some app specialists, some DevOps, some developers. They form a team and then they work with whatever division that they're with. And we could move to another division the next day. So it's quite fluid, and we need to be on our toes. Property division has something like 50 odd applications, and there's 3 of us. So there's a lot to do, and so hitting the ground running in 2019, I was there to experience the upgrade, which was critical for anything going forward for Maximo. in the background, in the back seat, so to speak, helping where I could. But as time went by, I was handed the reins. Everybody left. So it has been, so from the, I'd say from the upgrade to now, it's been about upskilling, understanding the product, stabilizing, making sure that everything is where it should be, and then starting to understand what the business wanted as far as innovation. So that has been my journey for the past few years. So if you want to bring up the slide, if you could, please. So as I understand it, when I started, the Certus Mobile app had been deployed, CV2. It sounds to me like historically there may have been issues, and I can explain it because it's a different situation to Richard's. Let's start with the fact that, the mobile users are all external contractors. We have no inventory. We assign all our work out. So therefore, they own the devices. They don't have a buy-in. They're reluctant to use anything more than their own bespoke products. So there's that element. But by the sounds of it, through development and evolution, they had a solid version 2, and everybody was fairly happy with the way that went. So they stabilized, and then they moved towards preventive maintenance. Now, I mean, Auckland University is huge. It stretches through we have campuses all over the northern part of the North Island. And so there's a lot of places and a lot of contracts. We managed to onboard 3 of our contractors, and probably the larger ones, and probably with more of the critical elements or critical assets that they needed to maintain. So that being said, we introduced the preventative maintenance, and we're looking at around about 7,000 to 8,000 to 9,000 PMs per month being distributed. Now, that was originally 8,000 to 9,000 pieces of paper being distributed to our contractors, which was just ridiculous. So anything that solved this was the onboarding of their admins, and allowing them to do bulk uploads on supervisors within Maximo, allowing them to control, and for those jobs to be distributed automatically, saved so much paper, saved so much time, and gave the admins control of those PMs. Mixture of internal staff and contract. Yes, so as I said, we've got a lot of people on the internal side who are managing the contractors, but only from the desktop side. They don't really see that mobility side. So there has to be a lot more interaction with our contractors. And up until the version 3, it has been fairly quiet. That relationship's been quiet, but it was clear that we probably need to do something a little bit more personal with them to make sure that they were welcome on the journey. So yeah, we have 45 users across the multiple campuses from 3 different contractors. We're currently looking at onboarding another 2 in the next 2 weeks. But we're comfortable with that, and we're comfortable with capacity, and we've got some strong training set out for them. But what I really wanted to do, and we'll get onto that in a minute, but the 2022 transition was fine. As far as a technical point of view, it was fine. Everything worked well. Everything was in place. It is. I guess it's just the humans involved in this and bringing them on that journey. And I probably learned a fair bit about, how to do it next time. But I would say that the important thing here was to establish a UAT team, a broad UAT team, very quickly, ensure that everybody was involved, and as soon as anything happened, just jump onto those issues as quickly as we can. And thank you to the teams who've been working on resolving those issues, and providing some feedback. Oftentimes, the same needs across different customers, so there's definitely an understanding of what we need out there. Tell me if I'm going too fast. So where are we at? So getting back to where we stabilized. So we stabilized with the upgrade. We stabilized. We threw in the PMs. We got them up and running on the mobility, and our goal was to get spatial module into play. We knew that we had all our assets in play, but we wanted more assets. We wanted to have a little bit of a broader aspect of how we controlled them. So we used a POC for botanicals was the project, where we brought in trees. All of our trees are historic, planted by Queen Victoria herself, apparently. But all of that historical data was needed to be stored. It needed to have elements of carbon footprint, etc. So we wanted to pivot off bringing new assets in, being able to see them and be able to locate them, and then at some stage bring in more people, more users who would be involved in that side of thing, and to start using more tickets, getting more preventative maintenance, starting looking at raising SRs, getting work orders done, and seeing all those critical elements. So that's where I was really trying to get to, was spatial, getting that embedded. Now, of course, the follow on from spatial was the rollout of digital inspections, which is what we're just doing now, creating an environment for new users, particularly or specifically our arborists, who would be granted tickets. They would go out and do the work. They would update all those meters for carbon footprint, whatever it was required, and we could track that data over time. So we need to bring those people on board. We wanted digital inspections also for our critical assets, generators, and the like. So something that was brought up just before, Richard, was around going from paper to digital. So one of those things that just a small thing that we're trying to overcome is that thing where, a sign-off, a critical sign-off has to be on a piece of paper, and pushing that away and saying, well, you can digitally sign this and bring it back in. So that's where we are now. We're digitally signing our inspections, and we're going to show that to our teams and say, is this enough for you to get through these things? So that was important. So yeah, so spatial, so we can see where we go, hooked it up to maps, get all our specifications and our coordinates and classifications all set up for our assets. Then bring in inspections, and at the same time, in parallel to that, we've just brought in failure reporting hierarchies. So we've reworked all our hierarchies for problem coding. That's going well. And then we've also brought in contract management as well, which will help us control our assets further down the line as well. That's slow off the mark, but we're getting there. And also the asset condition monitoring as well, which is great. So we've got those meters in place now, and they're certainly helping, as we spoke about last week about the asset criticality and how we calculate that. So that's imperative, and we're gonna pivot more off those. We're gonna create more of those types of meters where we can start to gather more data over time. So one of the other things that was a bit of a hiccup for us was as these contractors own their own devices, so there is an issue with OS and version controlling, something that we need to overcome. That is certainly something as a challenge, but we're going to work on that, and I think we have some outs on that, so that's great. We talked about geolocation as well. So we got QR coding coming in the first quarter, maybe second quarter of next year, so we can start to scan assets, critical assets, not all assets. So we're going to use that and pivot that off geolocating our assets and being able to log SRs against those within the app. We are also working on integration. So we're moving from a WLI to Kafka, which will allow us to enhance our asset management by linking up with Bemis, and hopefully that information can then be passed on to the mobile app and give them a bit more information, and hopefully it'll work both ways. Just looking at some of these notes, bulk uploads, says licensing, digital. Yes, onboarding transitions. I think that's most of the things that we've covered. I'm looking forward to next year. I'm looking forward to getting past this release that we're currently in and start looking at some of the juicy work we've got on in quarter 1 and 2. I want to see that outcome by this time next year. It should be fantastic. And I just want to say thank you to all the team, Arpit and your team, Roy. I really appreciate the support you've given us. It's not been easy, I know, but certainly it's a great product. I'm happy to be using it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Just want to touch on a couple of points there, and I guess building off what Richard was saying as well in terms of kind of getting better, right? So I know process improvement isn't one of your bubbles that's kind of up there, but certainly gets the feeling talking to you and kind of working with you on a daily basis as well, that it really is helping to drive some of those improvements and the changing of behaviours of the contractors as well. And one thing that I didn't actually link before, but kind of just linked it when you were talking there, is the outcome for the university is that you need to start tracking some environmental factors, right? So you need to be very conscious about being able to do that. So the little pieces that have actually been put in place are things like the spatial stuff to capture your trees, to get the meter readings that are in there, to bring in the inspection so that all of that data can then feed up to your final output, which is to basically track how you're doing against your environmental KPIs for the university. So it's I didn't, even though we've been talking about it for like a year, it didn't really click with me that obviously was the final outcome that we were trying to achieve. So it's kind of great when you put all those sort of pieces together. But obviously only mobility was only a small piece in terms of that entire puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's the thing, is that often I've stopped talking about what that future looks like and just focusing on getting everything established. And I think that, and that was something I was going to bring up, is that spatial POC was 2011, and I didn't start looking at it until 2020. So a lot of change, and I think they were rolling forward with that piece without actually knowing how we were going to utilize it. But as I learned more about where it was going, I started to see that there were things that we could utilize it for, and people were coming asking questions about, hey, can we do this and do that? So it all kind of fell into play. But so it would be great to be able to say that, go back and say, look, here's our data now. These are what trees are giving for you. But it's not just botanicals, it's roading, it's signage. There's just so much there. In fact, we've brought on old meters, like old physical meters, bringing them in as assets, and then having them being updated by the mobility app on those readings, and that being filtered back. All of that information is so valuable. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's great. And Richard and I often talk that the university itself is kind of like a mini city, right? In terms of you have to be responsible for everything within its walls. So you are sort of running a city there in terms of your services, your roading, your signs, everything that's kind of around there. So I'm not sure that many people kind of grasp that concept in terms of what it is that you're trying to do. Normally people from the outside looking in, it's just it's a bunch of students, and I was one of them, basically getting drunk at the start of the year and then cramming for some exams at the end of the year. So it's kind of great to see that sort of difference of it.
I'm not going to dignify that.
How about if I interrupt and throw a question to you? I've actually had a question come in from Martin, who would like to know whether or not you've seen an improvement in the work order completion data due to having more intuitive tools.
Yes. So we have a delinquency report, and nobody wants to be on that report. So it's very important, and it's something you brought up as well, Richard. We have all the dates. We have the date when it started, when it was kind of looked at, when it was maybe pushed, shoved under the carpet, and when it was back again. So there's all that data around performance and the process. So definitely showing that, and the relationship between our business and those contractors is strong. It's good. Their interactions are, they understand where the pain points are. And it's something that we talked about with digital inspections as well, is that, we wanted to bring this thing in, and my perception is that this would be, over time, that data would be, one, if there's no data, why is there no data? Two, if there is data, is it consistent? And 3, does it bring you any value? Obviously, most important. But does it bring you any value in your business? And those are all the things that this is giving us. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much. And for the record, it was Prince Alfred, Queen Victoria's second son, who planted those trees in 1869 on New Zealand's first ever royal visit.
You're probably right. Let me just have a look at that.
Fact check.
Yeah.
Excellent, great. All right, thanks, Aaron. I think one of the things, and I think it was great having Richard and Aaron kind of talk back to back, because they're essentially both in the same industry, right? So they're both from universities. They're both using Maximo, both using Touchstone, but you can clearly see that they're both using it in a very different way. So while they've got the same tool set, kind of the process that they're bringing in, their data and their people, means that it needs to operate in a different way. So I think that's certainly a value add that Touchstone is bringing to their businesses. So yeah, thank you both.
I was going to say there as well, Roy, the sort of sense of community. I mean, I know we've contributed some development direction in certain areas, and the same of all the other customers, which allows us as a community to grow and take a look at it and say, hey, I quite like that, but it's now part of the product. We didn't have to pay for every little piece along the way, So there's definitely some aspects happening with some of the other customers that we're looking in the spatial thing, especially. Because you're quite right, like we're not just buildings, we've got a lot of land as well. We've got our own water supply, that city concept is real. But that community piece allows us to sort of cherry pick and essentially start using. There's a lot just turns up in the core product. So that's been really good.
Great, thank you both. Okay, so we'll move on now. Sorry, you have to listen to me talk a little bit more, but so I'm just going to sort of focus in a little bit more around sort of the wider aspects of field service management. So we've heard it a lot, and we tend to concentrate a lot in terms of around work orders and sort of updating and completing those. But please don't be scared by the next slide. This is a little insight into I guess, my brain in terms of how things sort of work. So down the left-hand side, there's a lot of people that are part of a field service process, and we tend to just kind of focus in on one aspect of it, which is essentially the work order part. All right, so we've got something that needs to be done on something, and as part of that, then we need this many people to actually be able to go and do it, whether they be in, whatever your language is in terms of an asset maintainer, a field technician, contractors. We've heard already coming through, supervisors, schedulers, asset managers. So all of these people are contributing to kind of one small piece of field management. We've heard already, we've got various operating systems at play, iOS, Android, Windows, different types of devices as well, and different environments, indoors, outdoors. People have to travel in between places, disconnected, connected states. And everybody wants to be able to do everything. At the very minimum, they want to be able to see the details of the asset or the thing that they're actually there to work on. They want to be able to search. They want to be able to update. They want to be able to create new. They want to be able to take a photo. They want to know where it is. So all of those sort of factors kind of come into play. And then we've got a lot of the new technologies that are coming through as well around AI and AR and all sorts of weird and wonderful acronyms that people probably don't even know what they really kind of mean. So all of those things has kind of come into play. So when we kind of sit back and look at it and go, there's a lot kind of there, it's easy to kind of get confused and just focus in on one particular piece. So when we're kind of looking at something of that sort of scale, and as I said, we're only really concentrating on one piece. So we're concentrating on the get the work done piece and a little bit of the work order management piece in terms of one aspect of it. There is some process optimization that kind of comes in, and that's part of sort of anything that we sort of do, and a little bit of scheduling and dispatch, right? So kind of we're looking at just a very tiny part of what field service management is about. And we almost kind of forget, which is ironic really, about the actual end customer. So the end person who is actually using this service, or that they've raised the initial request, maybe they don't have water, maybe their lecture theatre isn't up to standard, or maybe they aren't getting the service that they provided. So there's kind of that aspect to it, which we tend to forget about when we're looking at field service management. And then there's kind of the billing part. Now, I'm sure there's no finance people on the call, so I'm sure they don't forget about the billing aspect of it. But it's one piece that kind of just tends to happen on the side, right? It's driven normally by somebody else. It's not kind of part of the standard process. So when we start to kind of add some of that other stuff in and start to think about, well, if we take into account the request or the customer from the beginning and we factor in some of the billing part of it, what does field service management start to look like in that aspect? And do we need to change anything from a people, process, technology perspective to be able to kind of bring that in as well? The one I didn't touch on there was the monitor operations, and I think both Richard and Aaron touched on that around being able to bring other data sources, building management, SCADA systems kind of into play. So I always like to kind of fall back to the people, process, data side of things, and then our technology is kind of there to sort of be able to support it. So if we kind of go through the flow and we add customer in, we add system in, because those are both sources of identification for work, then kind of it starts to kind of take on a bit of a different flow in terms of from an identification process through creation, triage, scheduling, execution, complete, close, and we've got billing in there as well. Hopefully we bill it before we close it out. So at least then we know kind of everything's done. But if we start to kind of think about some of that, and this is where hopefully we'll start to get some questions through, maybe not one that says, Roy, you're talking a load of rubbish. But certainly, where else can we kind of go? And this is kind of getting back to what Jacob and Arpit were saying in terms of we're really looking for your feedback in terms of how we can extend this process out. So I believe that intelligent interactions have a real place, particularly in field service management. It's something that we're dealing with all the time. And we've got lots of great technology out there. It's just about how we actually start to apply it correctly within the different process and making sure that we're getting value. And I think both Aaron and Richard touched on, that value that they're actually starting to get out of being able to move forward and bring other stuff in and force the business to kind of change and be better, I think is there. So again, I just wanted to add in those different aspects around field service management, the stuff that we haven't tended to kind of think about. We kind of stick in our little diamond in the middle there, but think outside of that diamond around how we can utilize intelligent interactions kind of in that process a little bit better. Everybody has power phone, that sort of thing, and even the experiences of just trying to pay a bill or report a fault and that sort of thing. Think about those experiences that you've had perhaps recently, and how that kind of has worked and where maybe it can kind of be better, essentially. So just wanted to throw that out there, and hopefully it invokes some questions or feedback.
So it seems to be fairly quiet at the moment.
Damn,
you've done a brilliant job.
Well, either that or I didn't get them thinking well enough.
It's all right. The trick to that is actually, you remember you mentioned earlier about drinking a little bit too much at university and studying the day before? There's actually a psychological reason why that's very good for you. And it's all to do with your synapses, because when you drink, you calcify your synapses in your brain. They've got less area to spark next to, so that students tend to do better that way. Not that I'm recommending that anybody here go out and get drunk before they have to do something important the next day.
You've just disappointed a bunch of people, Paul.
I'm not saying that they can't. Just saying I don't recommend it on a Wednesday. So if anyone does have any questions, so they can just drop them down in the chat on YouTube or in the Intelligent Interactions chat of the app. If they haven't got the app yet, they can download that as well through both iOS and Android stores. Just do a search for the name of the app. It's right there. It's super easy to find. If there are no questions, then I guess everyone gets to go home early. Is that how it works?
Sure.
Well, I mean, for you guys, it's what, lunchtime there at the moment?
Yeah, a little bit past lunchtime.
Okay. It doesn't look like we've got anything coming through. You answered all the questions for everyone. It's brilliant.
Too easy.
Easy. Nicely done. In that case, thank you very much, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll go back down to this layout where we can actually see everybody in the presentation is shut down. This will be available as well on the YouTube page, open to the public. So if you want to send off the link to anybody, it's the one that was there for streaming. They can sit down, rewatch everything again if they've got any questions. And they can always ask questions in the video itself or on the app, or send it directly to you guys. Thank you very much. I think that's us pretty much done for the day.
Great. Just another thank you to Richard and Aaron. It was great to listen to your journey so far. I know I've been part of it, and it has been a pleasure doing that as well. And you can both now tell your children you are YouTube sensations.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Roy. All right, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Take care.